So basically we're looking at three kind of key areas. One is kind of migration, the second one is settlement and land use, and the third area to look at is urban problems and solutions, okay? Just Larkin, my moderator there, I can get a kind of a vibe back from that again, so I might just get you to turn that down a little bit because I'm kind of hearing myself. Is that all right? Okay, so looking then at, first of all, migration. So the first one is to look at emigration and immigration in Ireland. So the first one is emigration, and obviously you can see from the picture there, the coffin ships, the emigration from Ireland during the famine time. We have a history of emigration. Even during the latest recession or the current recession, since 2008 there's been a massive outflow of people, or an out-migration or emigration of people to other countries such as the United States and the UK, Canada, Australia. And even though the world has become a smaller place and, you know, we can get to places quicker, even Australia is only half a day away now or a day away, still at the same time it has a massive effect on people. And hopefully in the next few years that will sort itself out and we will provide jobs again for people. Anyway, so looking at immigration, so we're going down through just the key points on that. The first one is that immigration provided a safety valve for Ireland. So what do we mean by a safety valve? You can imagine in Ireland, even in times of the famine, when we had 8 million people at the height of the famine, and if you didn't have people to go anywhere, if there was nowhere they could go, so in Ireland all the extra people or excess people or the overpopulation scenario that we had meant that we had people had the opportunity to emigrate abroad and get jobs there. And as a result of that, it is one of the reasons why Ireland isn't effectively a much poorer country today. The next point then, had immigration not been possible, the high birth rates, you know, because the influence of the Catholic Church led to massive high birth rates, and the spiralling unemployment problem would have created a domino effect and increased the social problems way more than they would have been today. So Ireland became a donor country. In other words, people from Ireland went to other countries to obviously find work. Right, down at the definitions at the bottom of the page, so just have an idea of those definitions. Migration is moving from one place to another. Immigration is moving out of a country. Immigration is people, say, from the likes of Eastern Europe, Africa, Asia, moving into our country. The donor country is where the people come from. The host country is the country where the people go to. Then you have a push factor, which basically means what pushes people out of a country, such as in Ireland, unemployment would push people out. And then what attracts them to the United States or Australia, obviously the pull factor then is the provision of jobs and maybe a better standard of living and a better quality of life. Okay, so flick on to page 2, so folks, and we'll continue on with that. So many countries such as Ireland benefited from remittance. So underline that word remittance. Remittance basically means that Irish people who emigrated and went abroad sent money back here. And particularly in the recession of the 1980s that I would remember as a young kid, and I would remember that a lot of money at the time was sent back to people in Ireland just to keep their head afloat, basically, just to keep the house in order. So it was a massive bonus to Ireland to get this money flowing in the form of remittance. Okay, down then below the box then, an examination of Ireland's population pyramids then between 1950 to 1988 shows a large absence of people in the 16 to 40 age category. So there was a lot of young people, there was plenty of people who were older than 40, but it was the people between 16 and 40 who were emigrating. So the population pyramid then was much narrower at that point. The next SRP then, the young people who leave are usually the most skilled and the promise of well-paid employment is the dominant pull factor or push factor out and pull factor to attract them to the other side. So obviously, particularly in Ireland at the moment, that's one of the key things. Ireland is a very highly educated and skilled workforce and they're very sought after abroad. Even as a school teacher, I would know that Irish school teachers, qualified teachers, are one of the most sought after in the whole world. So lots of different countries who are short of teachers are asking Irish teachers to go there to teach. Next one, the last point on just that group of points is to say the west of Ireland suffers then much more so during the period of mass emigration. So in cities such as maybe Dublin or Cork, people could find certain amounts of employment there. Whereas people in the west of Ireland, they couldn't find employment. So they were the people who emigrated. Also, I noticed in the west of Ireland, my mum being from the west of Ireland, that there generally isn't a mentality in the west of Ireland of hanging around and sitting on the dole and doing nothing. They don't really do that in the west of Ireland. The west of Ireland, the very mentality of get up off your backside and get out and find a job. And if that means you got to go to Australia or the United States to do it, then that's what you do. So it tends to be a mentality as well, a kind of a, that's the way they think about it. Okay, immigration to Ireland then. So obviously, particularly during the Celtic Tiger boom, a lot of immigrants came into Ireland, particularly from, as I said, Asia, North Africa, Eastern Europe. And they came in here and again because we had a good standard of living and they would provide a better life for themselves as a result of it. So what the cultural effects of immigration is the next point. So Ireland now is a much more, I suppose, multi-ethnic, multicultural, cosmopolitan society. And as a result of that, I think it's a very, very positive thing for us that that's the case. Because it gives us the opportunity to open up our minds a little bit more and be a little bit more accepting of other people from other cultures and to learn about other cultures then as a result of that as well. So some migrants are not economic migrants, such as those from Eastern Europe. Eastern Europeans, as we had spoke about already when we looked at the impact of EU expansion on Ireland, when we looked at that in the regional geography section, we said that they came in here to fill the jobs because we had job vacancies, and most of them did jobs that were below their skill level. The highly educated ones were the ones that came here and were a massive bonus to the Irish economy. But some migrants are political migrants, particularly from North Africa. A lot of them come here, their basic claim to be here is because they're being discriminated against in their own country, maybe due to their political beliefs, maybe their religion. So different reasons like that are the reasons that they've decided to come in here. The next one is repatriation of guest workers. So foreign nationals might be employed in Ireland on fixed contracts and then would have to go home back to their host country or back to their original country again where they came from when that visa then for that work would run out. So the financial cost of supporting refugees, obviously, particularly in an economic crisis, is very, very expensive. And I've noticed that it has created a lot of tension between Irish people and immigrants. And hopefully that's something that can sort itself out. But when it comes to provision of maybe social housing and things like that, it has created a lot, I noticed, tension between native Irish people and immigrants. Ethnic hatred can become a problem then as a result of that. So you have xenophobia and racism and other social issues tend to raise their ugly head when when there's a competition for social services and things like that. And hopefully Ireland will come out the far side of that as well. The next thing is to look at the racial, ethnic and religious issues which arise from migration. So obviously issues arise as a result of migration. So looking at the racial issues first of all then. So the first one then is when tensions build up between local and immigrants. So prejudice can build up in stereotypes. And you know the way we can stereotype people. You know, Irish were traditionally known as kind of, what would I say? We're always fighting and we're always drinking alcohol. So that's the kind of stereotype that we have. Lots of people in Ireland don't drink at all, and lots of people in Ireland don't fight out in the streets all day and all night. For instance, the Germans and the British per head of population would drink a hell of a lot more alcohol than we would. But we got the reputation, and when you get a reputation, people can stereotype you in as that type of person, which is very, very unfair. But that's generally what people tend to do. And as a result of that, then we embed certain false images about certain people. And the only way to get out of that is to educate our way out of it. So that's the key there. Next one, repatriation of guest workers, for instance, foreign nationals employed on... Sorry, my apologies. Prejudice can build up, as I said, on stereotypes, and particularly if you have different coloured skin or you look different, you can stand out, and that obviously leads to increased stereotyping, and you know, it can create a lot more, a more obvious, I suppose, hatred between groups, and if you stand out and you're separate from maybe the native Irish. Okay, next page then, page 3. So, fear of racist intimidation drives immigrants into one area, into like ghettos in the city. I noticed, for instance, when you go to the United States, that in New York and in Boston and in San Francisco, you have like the Chinatown, where people from Asia came and they found, I suppose, strength and unity in staying together to support each other. And as a result of that, they created these types of ghettos. In Ireland, we like to think that we're a little bit above that. I know that they wanted to develop a Chinatown, the Chinese in Dublin City, but it was rejected by the Dublin City Council. And I actually agree with that, because I'd like to think that people from Asia would mix with everybody else and that we'd all get on together rather than kind of pigeonholing people into different areas of the city. So hopefully that's something. I would always be a big believer in both a social and cultural mix of people throughout cities, and I think that's a very, very positive thing when it comes to, you know, kids of different cultural backgrounds going to school together, and it creates a much more tolerant attitude to different cultural groups. So down then to ethnic issues is the next one. So most ethnic groups work hard to sustain their language and their customs and their traditions. In Ireland, for instance, the Irish language lost out to English among the immigrant population in the United States. So a loss of cultural identity is progressive as it decreases over time through the generations. So it can work both ways. A lot of Irish in the United States now start kind of, or third or fourth generation Irish have become, you know, Americans, because they are. But at the same time, they are, particularly St. Patrick's Day would be an obvious example where their Irish roots would come out from time to time. So what do ethnic groups do? They set up organisations that they can that are linked to their culture. For instance, the GA or in the United States or in the UK or in Australia is one of those organisations that is set up so that Irish people can meet and play the games against each other. And again, I would consider it a very, very positive thing. So obviously, ethnic cleansing is where you take it to whole new levels. So when you have the mass murder of people due to racial issues or ethnic issues. So an example would be maybe the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda. And you know, over 1 million people were massacred in about 100 days. So that will give you an idea of the negative side of that. More negative sides of that then can be, for instance, like the whole final solution and Hitler during World War II will be another example of that whole type of ethnic cleansing scenario. Next thing then is religious issues, so go down to that. So the issues of religious freedom for minority religion in a receiver country can pose major challenges. For instance, in Ireland, primary schools generally tend to be Catholic-run primary schools or Protestant Church of Ireland-run primary schools. They're a smaller minority. But obviously other religions have come into Ireland now. So we have to be a little bit more tolerant of other religions, and we have to find some sort of balance. I notice if you're looking at the media over the last couple of months or even the last 2 years, the new primary schools that are being set up predominantly in Dublin but also in other areas tend to be under the auspices of Educate Together schools, whereby they're multi-denominational, so they're not run by any one single religion. Next point, the newly integrated multi-religious societies, matters of dress affiliated to a specific religion. So, example, headdress by Muslim women. And there's obviously the debate is out in the public all the time, particularly with the whole Muslim or Islamic headdress. Simply because women, even Irish native women, consider it oppressive, and they consider that women have to cover themselves up so much as being something that isn't necessarily cultural or religious, but it's a way of oppressing women. And whereas some of the women who actually wear all those headpieces and stuff say that that's part of their culture and their tradition and are happy to do it. So it's hard to find a balance then on that. So again, there's obviously lots of issues that still have to be teased out, and I just believe that by sitting down and discussing them and by educating ourselves about different cultures and traditions, that's the way we'll come out the other side of that. Okay, so the consequences of religious segregation then have led to conflict. So in Northern Ireland, the whole idea between, and we did this already when we looked at the complexities of region section, the whole idea argy-bargy between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland. And obviously Catholics still go to Catholic schools, and Protestants or Presbyterian Protestants still go to Protestant schools. And as a result of that, then it creates a hell of a lot of tension. I think that the future should be that it would be completely mixed, and there would be a much greater tolerance then of each other. Okay, so flick over the page then to finish up that question. Then we will look at the turban issue. The turban issue, you know, the Sikhs, and they wear those turbans. And it became an issue in Ireland when I think it was 2 of them wanted to join the Guards, and they were in Garda College and they were actually studying to become Guards, but they refused to wear the Garda hat. And according to the law in Ireland, the Garda hat is actually a very important part of the Garda uniform. But obviously their religion would say that they can't wear the hat. And the Gardaí stuck to their guns effectively and said, well, if you're not willing to wear part of the uniform, you can't be a guard. So obviously these types of things are other things as well that need to be teased out in that. The schools issue then, obviously, I explained that to you already, of the whole idea of educate together and more multi-denominational schools. Okay, looking then into the background of site, situation and function. And what I'll do there is I'll take a break there, folks, now, and I'll start then on that when we come back, okay?